Hello and welcome back to Sammy's Tech. So here, this would be part two. This video segment, we'll call this the part two of the review of the Cougar MX330-G Pro version. So I showed you the non-pro version where we have a LGA 775 and a Core 2 quad build, right? And so here on this review is part two of the Pro version. On another video segment, I'll see if I can put it on before or after this one. I showed you this case when it was still empty. So now that I put a build in it, that's why this is called part two, right? So it'll look, that way you can see how it looks like once you put some parts in here, right? So I'll show you the case, the view of the case, and I'll also talk about the build as well. And then on another video segment, I'll take it to the kitchen and then we'll bench test a video game or two. And maybe one or two video cards. Okay, so this particular place, it does use tempered glass. So let me show you. Let me show you that really quick before the light goes out. Let me show you the piece of glass. So here's the front glass for it. So basically, it's a piece of glass, and then they looks like they used some sort of super glue, and they glued a piece of metal over here, and they glued another piece of metal here. Okay, and then these have like these latches or tabs, right? And so what happens is when you put into the case, you pull it forward, and then these latches are supposed to latch onto the case. And here on the back end, all it really has is just some screws, some holes right here, so you can screw it on. So so you put it in here, you pull it forward to latch it in, which is kind of, you see that on most modern cases. You just pull it forward, and then you hold it in place, and then you put these two thumb screws, one up here and one in the bottom, and that's it. Just be careful. Make sure this thing latches on here, because it's not the. I think this, me personally, I think this tab should have been a little bit more larger, more further up. It's like there's not a lot of millimeters there. So I bought a second one of these, and these were too short on the other one, so it doesn't latch right. So, if Cougar's looking at that, maybe you could make this a little bit longer, so that that way in case there's it's slightly machined wrong. Yeah, in case this is not machined perfectly, it would be nice if maybe the tab was a little bit larger, so there's plenty of tabs to stick behind here and hook properly. So that's one good thing about the other one that's non-pro. It uses just some regular screws, and that's a little bit more sure that's gonna stay attached. So on here you only have the screws on the back end, right? So anyway, hope that explains there. Let's talk about the case really quick then. Front glass on this side. Here on the top of the case, you actually have spots for a 360, 120, 120, 120. There's also some cutouts here, so technically you could put a 140 and a second 140. Okay. And yeah, so the Pro version. Hold on. I need to buy one of those studio lights one of these days, but not yet. Sorry. So on the Pro version, what's different about the Pro version? Well, it's a totally different case. The Pro version, I think only has a little bit over a year that it's been out to the market, whereas the non-Pro has been around, I think, for like 8 years, if I remember. Yeah, I think like 6 years, 8 years. It's been around forever. So I like the original one, and I like this one too. And of course I buy them mostly because you know, for my older computers, you don't really have too many choices for cases for a DVD drive, right? So for the older computers, I like to install a DVD drive. And that's kind of funny. I usually don't use a DVD drive, but I just like how it looks like, you know, with the DVD. That's me, right? And what else here on the top? Yeah, you got the power button, reset button. What is that? Headphone jack. I think that's both, right? Headphone and microphone on a single jack. This one has a Type C. You don't see that on a lot of cases, but this one has the Type C plug, like on a smartphone, right? Type C. Then you got USB 3.0, and you got a single USB 2.0. Okay. So that's that. And this has a shroud on the bottom, and it has a cutout just like a modern case. So because this is only 2 years old, this design, it pretty much follows you know, pretty much all the modern stuff that you would see. And yeah, I think that's about it. Then you got provision for the DVD drive right there. And like I said with the other video, this one seems to have plenty of room here to put your hand in. So I guess it's not too much of a big deal. But I recommend before you install the motherboard, do what I do is you know, put your motherboard on the table, right? And what I recommend you do is you get your connectors, and you install the CPU connector, right? Connect the CPU connector here while it's outside the case, and also connect the 24 right now outside of the case, and you know, also use your flashlight and make sure it's fully seated. Make sure it's fully seated, and make sure it's fully seated here, you know, with the clip, you know, because I think it's a lot easier doing it outside the case, because on some cases this area up here is really tight. So what you want to do is once you're ready to drop the motherboard in, what you want to do is, at the same time this is already plugged in, you want to fish this into the hole as you drop it into the motherboard. That way you don't have any problems later on, you know, because I think it's a mistake. What most people do is you put the motherboard in, and only when the motherboard is in, now you got all this cramped space, and you're trying to jam in the connector while it's in the motherboard, and you can't even see if you're properly plugging it in or not, you know. So I think it's just a lot easier to do it outside of the case, and get your extensions and plug these two in, you know. And even if you don't like color extensions, I still think at least get the plain black extensions. At the very least, get the 24 and get the CPU one. Just get these two at the very least, because those are a pain in the butt. So, and plug them both in. Also, plug in your cooler outside and plug in the sticks. I think that's really what I would do. Yeah, plug in the extensions, right? Plug in your extensions. Well, first put the cooler on, plug your RAM sticks on, then plug in these two extensions, and then put the board in. And while you're putting the board in, fish that through the two holes. Because like I say, on this one there's plenty of room, but if you're working with tighter cases, there's barely any room here to work around the motherboard. So it's better to just take care of that while it's out on the table. You know, that's a little tip from Sammy. Okay, now let's get back to our case. Another thing, I don't know why, but if you go all over YouTube, I don't know why, but there's almost no, I don't think no reviews. There's almost no reviews. Yeah, I don't think any review. There is no review from anybody around the whole world on this case. That's kind of weird. Not even Cougar has, well, I think they put out like an official case review, but not an actual, you know, where they just take a bunch of pictures, but they don't actually have like a live person filming it or anything. It's kind of weird, but there's a lot of PC products that don't have any reviews on the internet, which is kind of like incredible. You know, like how large the world is, and we're talking about all over the world, and nobody has a review on it in any language. I think there's not in any language. So I don't know. Well, maybe I'm typing it in English, but I haven't seen any Spanish either. Unless you have to type it in like some maybe a Southeast Asian language, and maybe you'll see a review like that. But I don't know. It is kind of strange. So, you know, if you're wondering about this case, yeah, because every once in a while I'll see in the comments like, hey, you know, can you guys recommend a case that has a DVD, because you know I want to keep my DVD. You know, I'm me too. I like to keep my DVDs. You know, especially also if you got a Blu-ray player. You know, you got some Blu-ray movies. You know, you can put a Blu-ray in there or a DVD, or just a plain CD, right? I think those are three types: CD, DVD, or Blu-ray. So there you go. MX330 and MX330 Pro. So the difference on the Pro, like I say, the glass is a little different design. This design is very similar to a modern case. So if you work on a lot of modern cases, you'll see like this pretty much the standard layout. They pretty much copied the same way. So, you know, 360 on the top. That's what you see in most modern cases. 360 here, you know, 1, 2, and 3. You can't use the third fan, of course, if you've got the DVD player in. Right? What else? The power supply shroud. It's not all the way, right? It has this little cutout. I've seen that most case manufacturers, you have this little cutout so you can bring up your video card cable through this cutout right here, right? So that's kind of normal. What else? And let me see. And for if you're wondering about the motherboard, right? Let me see. Make sure I'm still filming, right? Okay. So if you're wondering about the motherboard, instead of a Core 2 quad on this one, we went with first generation. So i7-870, which is first generation Intel, and the motherboard is an ASUS P7P55. WS, which means workstation computer, which is kind of like a rare motherboard. I think there's only like 1 or 2 reviews on that motherboard on YouTube, which is also really strange. Yeah, it's kind of like an expensive motherboard. It's not like a bummy board. It's like I think it's considered an upper tier motherboard. So it's got the VRM cooling on it. It's got the 4 slots. This supports DDR3, right? DDR3, 16 gigabytes, 4 slots, running at 1333. And I checked the BIOS. Technically, you can You can overclock the RAM. I tried that already. So the base RAM is 1333, and just for fun, I tried picking 1600, and it works. So you can put it at 1600. And the CPU, the BIOS has a overclocking settings. So if you know how to overclock, you know, you can do that. But me personally, I don't recommend overclocking these older motherboards, because, like I say, you might stress the mother. It's an old motherboard already, and you're stressing the capacitors or whatnot. You know, it's more like a museum piece. Like, for example, if this board burns out, I probably won't be able to find this board ever again. So that kind of sucks. But, you know, that's how it is in the retro world. You know, that you know, if you mess up your board, you're done. You won't be able to replace it. You know, you'll have to get a different model or something. So, you know, I don't want to lose this board if I can help it. So I just keep it all at base clock. And I also try to be careful when I plug something in and I unplug it, you know, that I'm trying to be careful not to damage the connectors on the motherboard. Right? Okay, so let me see. And the cooler, let's see. Yeah, just a regular 120 air cooler. Nothing special right there. So you pick your flavor, Cooler Master, or Deep Cool, or Thermal Take, Thermal Right. There's a bunch of brands right now, right? So this is just a regular 120 with a single 120 fan, and and at base clock speeds, i7-870 base clock, more than enough to keep the CPU cool. For video card, right now I got a GTX 970 ASUS Strix 2-fan, and I got a brace here, GPU brace to keep it up and level. You know, I recommend always using a brace if it's a 2-fan. If you're installing a 2-fan video card, I recommend putting a brace, or at least that little sticky stick to hold it up. You know, if it's a single fan, then I don't see any reason to use a brace. But if you're using two fans, then I recommend always put a brace. It's only like what I think it's around less than $10. I think between like $5 and $10. So I really don't notice on the builds on the YouTube video. Me personally, I think that should be standard practice to install the brace. And the bottom, this board does not have USB 3. So like I say, the top of the board has USB 2 and USB 3, and these cables run down here. So I run it, you know, towards the back and then fish it down here. And the USB 3, I have an adapter so I can plug it into the USB 2 header, right? So both the motherboard has 2, or I think 3 actually. Yeah, I think it has 3. I think it has 3, but I know it has 2 obviously. So the two USB 2 headers that are on the bottom of the motherboard. One, it plugs directly into the case with the USB 2 header, and the USB 3 header, which is this one that's like big and chunky. You have to buy a little adapter so that you can plug it in the USB 2 header. So that all 3 USB ports up here work, but at USB 2.0 speed, right? So keep that in mind, that these are running at USB 2.0. And I think let me make sure the back. Yeah. This board doesn't have USB 3.0 at all. So no, this is all USB 2.0 in the back and 2.0 up here on top. So keep that in mind. I don't know if there's any. There might be some first generation that have USB 3.0. Maybe not. There is a couple extra slots here, so I guess you could try and plug in a PCI adapter and have USB 3 that way, if that's important to you. Of course, right? But you guys already know that, right? Let's see, down here, The HD audio. Let me see if the HD audio is there. Yeah. The HD audio is there. The two USB headers are there. There's the fan header, and I installed a fan splitter to get all my fans going. I installed one fan splitter right there, and right next to it is the pins. You know, the power switch, power and reset is right there. Right above the power switch, we have the CMOS battery, and right next to the CMOS battery is the jumper for the CMOS. Actually, right below the battery is the BIOS chip. It looks like a little bug with the fingers. Technically, it looks like you can pull it out and flash it if you're a real geek. If you're a real nerd, you can buy that little BIOS flashing tool, and you can see if you want to experiment with that. But yeah, these boards are really picky. This is the second ASUS P55 board I had. The other one, my God, every once in a while it would stop posting, and I don't know what the hell's wrong with these boards. They're like really picky to post. Is all I can tell you. So I had that problem on this one too. What happened was I took out the GTX card and then I plug in one of my RX cards, you know, to test out Radeon. And you're not gonna believe it, but that caused a no post condition just by switching the video cards out. I don't know if it's because it doesn't like Radeon or what, but man, I had to unplug all the RAM sticks again. I reset the CMOS with the jumper, and I don't know how it fixed, but I just kept turning it on and then switching the RAM sticks, and then finally it posted, and then I put everything back, and then right now it's okay. But if it ever happens to you, I try to replicate it again. The second time around, I put the RX card again, and it didn't post. And you're not going to believe it, but this is what fixes it. I just found out that by accident. So I plugged in the Radeon card, my RX 580, and it didn't post anymore. So I pulled it out, and then I put my i7 450 in its place, and then it posted again. So it's something, I don't know, it's something about the motherboard. You know, the BIOS gets confused about the new video card, and it doesn't know what to do, and it gets stuck somehow. But this unstuck it. This is what fixed it. It went back to normal after I put this one back in, and then I put the video card back in, and that was okay. So I don't know. Maybe I'll try it in another video. Maybe I'll try it again and see if the problem has gone away, because you know that's really depressing. You know, who knows how many ASUS P55 boards are out there on eBay. You'll see them like not working. You'll see a bunch of motherboards not working, and maybe it is working, and it's just you got to find a way to get it unstuck. So in this case, this got stuck. It was because of just switching the video cards, got the BIOS stuck. So this unstuck it for whatever reason. This fixed it. You know. What else? Yeah, I think that's about it, right? I mean, this is not complicated. Here in the corner, you got your SATA. Your SATA connectors, there's 6 right there, so I put one for the SSD, and I got the SSD in the basement, right, near the shroud, and you know you can add another one for the DVD, and you can add a third one for the hard drive if you want to add a big hard drive in the bottom there, right? Okay, and what else? And then your fan splitters, more fan headers. And what else? The rear case fan, right? And right next to it is the CPU. That's kind of weird. But the CPU fan header is right next to the rear case fan. Instead of being over here where you would think it would be, the CPU case fan is the the rear case fan header and the CPU fan header is right next to each other over here on the back end. And yeah, for the CPU extension, there's this one is pretty spacious back here. The holes are right above the motherboard, but below the fan. So yeah, I don't know if you can see that on the camera or not, right? So yeah, the holes for the CPU extension cable are nicely offset right there. One in the corner and one above here. Right above the motherboard, but below the case, the top fans. So that's, you know, that's nice. So for if you're a new builder, you know, or like I say, you're an old school builder or a new builder, and you know you're looking for this case because of DVD drive. If you wanna have a lot easier time to build, get this model, because the non-pro, like I say, it's a much older tooling, and you know it's a little bit of a pain. If you go see that video, these holes don't line up, so you gotta fish the connector through the hole and then put the board on. And this one you can fish it later on. So that's nice. That, you know, this is much more spacious. There's more space up here. See that up here across? Yeah. So yeah, that makes it easier. This case is a little bit longer, right? It's a little taller. This case is it's a little taller and a little bit longer than the other one. So yeah. So what else is it? Yeah, if your video card is like, you got all this space here, right? So if you got a video card with 3 fans, then it would be there's still plenty of room here, you know. Me personally, like if I have a case this big, me personally, you know, if I can help it, I shop for video cards that have a 3rd fan, so you can have the fan all the way out here. So you know, so aesthetically, it just looks more cool to have you know, a little bit longer video card to fill up the case, right? So I mean, that's what me personally, that's what I do. And then, you know, like the smaller 2-fan cards, I like to reserve those for the smaller cases or the MATX cases, you know. But that's me, right? And let's see, for fans, I bought and installed an kind of like old school blue LED. So these are this is like the light fans that are before. You know, you got ARGB, then before that you had RGB, then before that you had this, which is LED. So it's just one color, and so I picked blue for this one. So it's stuck on blue, and the fans are like crystal. That was kind of like the old school design. You can still buy them. You can still buy this kind. So you know, I kind of like it for these older computers. I thought it'd be kind of cool to keep it like old school LED blue. So, and for extensions, I picked these color combinations of dark blue, light blue, and white. I never had seen these before, so I thought that was kind of cool. So let me see what else. In the Wi-Fi, yeah, the Wi-Fi is right below here. It's the Wi-Fi slide. And instead of antennas, I repurposed one of these Wi-Fi cards I had on an OEM computer. So instead of antennas, it has these wires. It has these wires, right? Let me show you. Yeah, it has these antenna wires. So before I close it up, and when I'm finally finished, I'll maybe attach this with a screw or some zip ties, you know, maybe put it over here somewhere. But yeah, the OEM Wi-Fi card still works fine. So, you know, I repurposed it and it works fine. Let's see what else, and I think that's it. Oh yeah, you know, just in case someone in the comments, you know, there's someone going to get triggered, but I usually find that these colored extensions are too short, right? Me personally, I sometimes find that the extension cord is too short, which is 12 inches or 13 inches technically. So depending on the case, sometimes I can't hide this connector, you know, and I don't like to, you know, I don't like to do like something crazy like this, right? I don't like to do that, me personally. So can you see that? Yeah. Okay, so me personally, I personally don't like that. So when you plug this in, right? When you plug this into the motherboard or the video card, you're right. You're supposed to, for aesthetics, you're supposed to hide this connector behind the motherboard somewhere. But I never really liked that, because depending on what the scenario is, you're going to have to like stress. You're going to have to like stress this wire or something in some weird combination like this, you know. And you know, plus you lose this on the front. So, you know, like this, you know, if I see, me personally, I like to see a big loom. maybe it's just me, but I like to see a big loom on this side. But to do that, I got to keep this on this side as well. So